It was all going so well. What you see here is the whole unit, the engine and the gearbox and transfer box on its mounts, everything all built up, ready to drop into the chassis. It's on the hoist, ready to go. Then I saw a comment from a chap called John saying that the rear crankshaft seal, right down there, I'd fitted wrongly, and the way I'd fitted it would ensure that it was going to leak as soon as the engine started up. Now I didn't just take him at his word, because I have a constant stream of people telling me I'm doing things wrong. That's part of the joy of being on YouTube. But when I looked into it, it turned out he was completely right. And although it's upsetting, now I've got to redo all this, it would have been far more upsetting had, well, you can imagine if I'd got further on with a Kermit build, then fired at the engine, then found it leaked like a sieve, I'd still have to do all this. So I'm going to tear it all down to here again, take the clutch off, take this flywheel housing off, and then I'll show you what I did wrong, and I'm going to put it right. So bear with me for a moment, and I'll undo all the work of the last couple of days. So here is the seal, and here is the surface it's supposed to be sealing against. Now what I did wrong was put some engine oil around the inside here, and that is what is recommended in the manual, but the manual is talking about a different design of seal. This one has an inner lip that is PTFE, Teflon. Normally oiling an oil seal before it goes on is standard practice, but in this case, if you oil the Teflon and then you put it on there, what you've done is created a little film of, very thin film of oil, which then acts as a passage for more oil to come through, and so it'll just leak straight away. Now this is all information I've literally just learned. So I'm not going to argue about it. There will be people that want to debate this. I'm not really interested. The upshot is that this surface here has to be fitted dry, as I did, but also the inner surface here has to be completely dry as well, and then it just relies on that PTFE that it's made of to form the seal. The next thing you might be wondering is, can I just wipe that oil off of there, put it all back together and call it done? Possibly, but I'm not going to. And this is one of the few positives to come from all of this, is that I found a much better oil seal. So this is the same design of oil seal. This is a Teflon oil seal as well, but this is from Cortico, and this is from, as recommended by Turner Engineering, who I actually bought this from. And if you know anything about Land Rovers, Land Rover engines, mechanicals, whatever, Turner Engineering are like the engine rebuilder for reconditioning engines. So if they recommend it, and it's what they say that they fit in their reconditioned engines, then it's it's going to be the good stuff. I've also got a new gasket. So this seal that's in here was a Bearmark brand seal, and it was about a tenner. This one was 25, and it came in a Cortico branded box. So now I've got to get this out. This is much more sturdy than the one that came with the other one. So I'm trying not to touch this surface. So it says not to open the packaging until you're ready to fit, and I'm presuming that's because this glue, sealant, whatever it is, would go off. So here's this way in again. That's perfectly in all the way around. Whew. So here's the crucial part in the instructions, this bit here. So we've got ensure that both the installation surface and the PTFE seal lip are completely dry. Because this is a loose fit on there, I'm going to put it onto the seal first. So the shield is in there, that temporary. Yeah, and then this should just. Oh, that was close. I forgot the gasket. This is more flexible as well than the last one. So, taking that as a good sign. Okay, now we're ready. So we're on the pins. So it should just be a case of squidging it on now. What I haven't shown you is that there's a new thrust bearing on here. I've also taken off the fork and checked it, and it looks great. And I put a little dab of grease on the pivot point there, and a bit more of that red grease that came with the clutch is on these splines. Incidentally, if you're feeling disappointed that I haven't delved into the actual gearbox, I'm quite glad of that. But if you want to see inside a series gearbox, check out the channel Steamwally, and he's just done a 3-part series on his Land Rover Series 3 gearbox, including a really good way of refitting the gearbox to the inside the car without all the usual palaver. Well worth checking out, and well worth checking out his channel in general actually. He's got a very meticulous approach to mechanicking that I envy, to be honest. All of this, it's not really my comfort zone, as you probably guessed by now. One other slight clever thing that I did is get a whole load of nuts, which are not only stainless steel and flanged, but they're 15mm heads instead of 17. And what that means is that if I ever need to take these two apart while it's in the vehicle, I'll have a much easier job of getting a spanner on there. Let's see if I can. Oh, there. See, that's just about to engage. The other way to do it is to undo a couple of these studs and put in much longer M10 bits of stud bar and slide it on like that. Got away without doing that last time, so I should be able to do it again. That's just a case of putting it in and keeping it square, a bit like drifting in that seal. can. Well, I'm about to move the chassis into the workshop. I've picked rather a grim day to do it, but I've put the camera inside the polytunnel, so you should be able to watch what's happening without me ruining the camera. I'm going to drag it by hand a little bit away, but then it's uphill. I've got to do some kind of big U-turn. That's the front of the chassis poking out this way, and I need the front of the chassis poking into the workshop. So we might be chewing up the driveway a bit there. Not fat enough. Accidentally. Now Kermit's in the workshop, you can appreciate why I built the carport next door, because it does rather fill up the space in here. First job is to replace all those old nylocks that are on the U-bolts with these nice new ones. So get to that. Get comfy cardboard. That's good, because I was quite likely to have completely forgotten about those nylocks, so I'm glad that's done. Some painting next. And this is just something I completely forgot to do when I did the chassis, is the gearbox cross member. Because it's detachable, it wasn't with the chassis, it was just in the big pile of Kermit stuff. So I shall put some of that T-wash, the mordant solution on this, and paint it black. I also dragged out these brackets, which go here and here to hold up the bulkhead. I'll do the same with these. And then I think while I'm at it, while I'm painting things black, I'm going to take some of the plates off of the gearbox and just give them a clean up and spruce them up a little bit with some black paint as well. So yes, let's clean this, degrease it, mordant it. It's the cross member, and incidentally this replacement oil tank for my motorbike I'm going to do with the Zinger MIO top coat. Everything else I'm just going to give it a quick spray with satin black just for decoration. This is the same 3-stage filter that I use to make the compressor air into something breathable when I'm doing the blasting, and I'm going to use it for painting as well, because just as you don't want oil, water or particulates in your lungs, you don't want them in the paint either. Well, we had one nice day with the weather, and now it's back to howling wind and rain, as you can probably hear. Absolutely grim out there. It's times like these I'm very appreciative of having a workshop. I have to say it wasn't always like this. My first Land Rover engine swap I did here, well, it wasn't here, it was over there in half-built barn. And by half-built, I mean it didn't have a roof. So whenever I wanted to do any work, I had to get all my tools out, and then any change in the weather, I'd put them all away again. Everything was just such a faff. So for those of you that don't have workshops, I know, I remember, I know how it feels. Let's see if this fits. I don't think I've tried to fit this since it came back from galvanising. Everything's covered in zinc now, which it wasn't before, so I did leave a bit of tolerance. One side perfect and the other's just a bit snug. Hopefully I can sway it on. Yes, I can. Of course, this is the one time where a detachable gearbox cross member is absolutely not needed. But this being a Land Rover, I'm sure this gearbox will be out. I've got 4 M10 bolts with nylocks on, 2 on each side, so multiple points of failure. So with that cross member in, I think we're ready. I think we're ready to actually install the engine, except for these mounts. So these are the bottom of the gearbox mounts. Just going to attach these loosely for now and tighten all this up once it's in place. So, and incidentally, these mounts are actually Defender spec engine mounts, as are the actual engine mounts as well. And all that's just to give a lot more rubber to hopefully isolate all this noisy vibratory stuff. Fairly loose. Put this one on the other side. Okay, they're on. So I think we've got, well, I know the engine weighs 1/4 ton, 250 kilos. And I reckon this whole assembly here, I'm guessing, but about 100 kilos. Maybe slightly less. So a fair weight up on this hoist. So that's going to have to go forward now. Yeah, that's working really well actually. So if you need to lift an engine and gearbox together, the rear lifting point on the engine is doing all the work, which is just as well because this is the bigger hoist, and then the little hoist is just balancing. There's very little going on there. I think now is the perfect time to put a starter motor in, and I will go with putting in the brand new one just because I know that once all this is built up, the starter motor is a pig to get to. And I've got a new one now on the bench, might as well use it. I've got a couple of studs to go in. Some studs there. I've got these to go on, those little rubber half moons. Thanks to Christmas and a mail strike and all that, it took about 3 weeks to turn up. That's all they are, just tiny little funny shaped bits of rubber. One at that end. That's good, that's the rocker cover done. What we have here is a collection of turbos and exhaust manifolds. This is the manifold that came off of the Range Rover that supplied the engine over there. This is the turbo that came with that, so they were together. This is the manifold that I want to fit. As you can see, it's quite a different shape to that's the 200 and that's the 300. Now before I offer this up, I'm expecting a couple of issues straight off the bat, and one is that I've got a vague memory that the studs need to be moved or even replaced for longer ones. I have got more studs. The other thing, I've just been reading Glen Anderson's thread on retro rides. He's got a massive long build thread that goes back years. He's got a 1959 109 with a 200 TDI in it. That thread is well worth a read if you're doing a similar project to this or to his. In fact, I'll put a link to it in the video description. Anyway, the point is, he's just put a 300 manifold on his 200 TDI and said that the dipstick didn't fit. So this gets, this is in the way of that or vice versa. So I'll have to come up with some solution for that as well. Yes, so looking at this, it is going to miss the mount. Barely though, there's not much in it. Let's compare this to the original. So it's the original manifold. Which one's there? If I try and put the original turbo on it, everything's getting in the way of everything else. So you can see there the issue, the turbo doesn't clear, well with all, if I did wangle into position I think the turbo would probably be sat on the chassis rail, but also this pipe here is trying to go right through the chassis. Hopefully you can see there why I'm not using the original manifold and turbo. Now, of course, there would be ways to use the original, but it would involve a lot of fabrication for not much gain. Right, let's just do that. Just 2 studs needed by the looks of it, and they've got to be longer than that. There we go, planning ahead for once. I just have a ponder on the dipstick. So this is all temporary because obviously this is going to come on and off a couple of times to sort out all the exhaust, which will be quite an adventure in itself, actually, the exhaust, which we'll get onto that possibly next time. What I've got here is all the brake and clutch components, mostly new stuff. So there's a whole roll of what's it called, conifer, copper nickel alloy tubing. Talking of this tubing, you might be wondering why I didn't fit the brake lines before putting in the engine and gearbox. Well, the reason is that as per recommendations of the manufacturers of the disc conversion kit, I'm upgrading the whole brake system from basically from series to early 110, so like pre-Defender 110 where you had the discs at the front and drums at the back. And on those vehicles the pipes go up and along the top of the bulkhead and down again. So that's what I'm going to do. That also means that I can't use any of Kermit's braking system. So I've got a Defender pedal box. Painful expense. I've got a Defender, well, not 110 master cylinder, and a brand new servo to go with it. So all that will be coming up probably in the next instalment. So we had a bit of a setback with that oil seal. I hope you agree though, progress is being made again. That's going to do it for this instalment. I'm going to take it out now, wheel it back round to the carport and make some room to bring in the bulkhead, because the bulkhead is going to be the focus of the next phase of the project. I want to fettle it, paint it, and then install it in the chassis. And of course painting it means choosing a colour. And guess what? It's not going to be green. So on that bombshell, cheerio.